Greetings, I am Wham Bam Duel, and welcome to my explanation of Spell Commander's latest deck profile, the modern Declan Akaba. I highly recommend watching his video first, as this one is meant to go more into depth with some of the choices made when creating this deck. Starting off with my main deck monster choices, let's establish the basic outline I had for them. To start, I had to make sure to include 3 Doom King Armageddon, since that's what he was known for using in the anime. I also paired it with Savants Kepler and Galilei, as those were also some of the first pendulums he developed. And Kepler is a good starter for the deck anyways. Lastly, my main mandatory inclusions were Divine Zero King Rage, since it represents Declan himself, as well as the 2 different quadruple D monsters, Arc Crisis and Zero Paradox. When making other choices for this deck, I wanted to introduce the DD monsters in certain groups. For example, Savants Copernicus and Newton are in a group together, the Surveyor Pendulums are in a group together, the Proud Pendulums are in a group together, and the Canine Pendulums are in a group together. I also wanted to include the high-level Triple D monsters that have similar appearances to Doom King Armageddon, such as Vice King Requiem and Chaos King Apocalypse. When choosing the other DDD Kings I wanted to include, I decided to go for the Zero Kings of Laplace, Maxwell, Machinex, and Rage Again, since I thought those were an interesting group as well. For the back row, the Dark Contracts I included were to help introduce a diverse range of recurring effects into the deck. As for Wavering Eyes, I like to think of it as a move Declan can pull out of his back pocket in case Zark ever comes back, or if he just happens to be up against another Pendulum player. Even if he isn't, being able to get rid of his scales to burn for 500 and search any Pendulum monster is still a decent deal. With the back row and the side deck, I really wanted to play into the fact that Declan has every extra deck summoning method at his disposal, and also allow him to have counterplay against all other duelists who use their extra deck, which these days might as well be everyone. I especially like Pinpoint Dash for this, as Declan has monsters of every extra deck summoning method with a decent number of attack points, and if he knows his opponent specializes in a specific summoning method, he'd be able to use this card to a heavy advantage. For the extra deck, I knew I'd want to include each of the Doom King Armageddon upgrades, as well as each High King monster. Everything else was to help introduce diversity of effects and summonability. I also thought it might be fitting to have his most represented extra deck summoning method be Xyz, since that was the Fusion Dimension's first target in the Dimensional War, so I made sure to include a couple of extra DDD Xyz monsters like Darius. Now for the monsters that got left out, and there's a lot of them, because this archetype is massive, we'll start with DDD Dragon King Pendragon. This version of Declan's deck has no native dragon monsters, so its summoning method isn't very applicable. Sure, it can still be Pendulum summoned, but its other effect of discarding a card for a 500 attack point boost and back row removal isn't great either. Rebel King Leonidas could help mitigate damage taken from Dark Contracts, but I figure Declan has other ways to handle those, such as Contract Laundering, Galilei's Monster Effect, or Zero King Rage's Pendulum Effect. Pandora's effect is just straight up bad. It has to either crash into something to get its ability off, or be removed by the opponent. Even if that happens, you also need to control no cards, and at that point, drawing 2 cards is hardly even worth it. DD Evil is a card that specifically counters other pendulums, and Wavering Eyes and Bright Armageddon accomplishes that job better than this. DD Griffin's pendulum effect isn't very useful, and its monster effect isn't bad, but trying to summon it from the grave as a pendulum monster means it either needs to be discarded or detached from an Xyz monster to make its effect useful. At that point, Dark Contract with the Gate is a more consistent method of searching a DD monster every turn. Lilith's recovery effect is straight up poor and not very useful, and there are better cards for recovery effects in this deck. DD Arc is left out for the same reason as DD Evil. DD Ghost is also a poor method of recovery, and its requirement of running multiple cards of the same name is somewhat detrimental in a character deck profile. If the 3 copies of Doom King Armageddon weren't necessitated by what we know Declan ran, this card wouldn't have any appropriate targets for its first effect. Necro Slime's effect is made unnecessary thanks to Dark Contract with the Swamp King's ability to banish materials from the graveyard. And DD Lamia's effect has been straight up power crept by Lance Soldier, who's able to do what she does and modulate levels. For the back row that got left out, let's start out with Forbidden Dark Contract with the Swamp King. It has a heavier standby phase burn, its first effect is made less useful by this deck's ability to pendulum summon, and its second effect can't even banish materials from the graveyard. Dark Contract with the entities also has steeper standby phase burn, and while it may have different rewards for different summoning methods, none of these besides the Xyz and pendulum effects really feel like they do enough. DD Recruits requires the player to already be in a losing position, and at that point, adding a bunch of cards from the grave to the hand, and having that effect on the trap card of all things, probably won't be enough to save from a losing position, unless the card was set face down far in advance. Dark Contract with the different dimension was left out due to the fact that this deck has other, faster ways to recover Dark Contracts. Additionally, this one has to target exactly 2 Dark Contracts, so if there's only one in the graveyard, its effect can't be used. Now for the extra deck monsters that got left out, we have Oracle King Dark, which was left out for the same reason as Leonidas. Lastly, for the Little Kings of Flame King Genghis, Gust King Alexander, and Wave King Caesar, they were all left out in favor of their High King evolutions. If I included both the Little King and High King variants, too much space in the extra deck would have been spent on them. And that just about wraps it up. If there's anything else you think I've left out, or that should be changed about this list, feel free to let me know your opinions in the comments. Sorry this video took longer to get out than expected. Until next time, I've been Wham Bam Duel, and I'm always happy to see ya.